Hello and welcome to another episode of KickAss Brand Show. I'm Andrei Mincov, the founder and CEO of Trademark Factory, and today I'm beyond excited to bring you Dan Martell. After almost being shot in a high-speed chase, he found his salvation in programming and entrepreneurship. Dan Martell is best known as the founder of Clarity.fm and Flowtown, and now also through his massive efforts to help thousands upon thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs in the SaaS space. There's lots of wisdom in this interview. Dan dove really deep and gave some truly profound answers to several of my questions. And let me just say one thing before we jump into it. We only hear that which we're ready to hear. So one of the questions that I asked during this interview was, how can we shorten the path from I don't want to hear it to I got it? And Dan's answer blew me away. I think it will blow you away too. So make sure you watch this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome the one and only Dan Martell. So thank you so much for joining. Really, really appreciate you being on the show.
Cool, my pleasure, man. Are we recording right now? Are we recording right now?
Yeah, we were.
Whoa, this is a recording right now, right here. You and I are recording. We're doing this.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
We got this. Oh, what do you got there? There you go.
All right. It's real. Real. Sorry, man. I'm the worst interviewer. I'm just going to fuck with you the whole time. I'm so sorry.
I can live with that.
All right, cool.
You know what? Yeah, like I said, it's an awesome pleasure to have you on because it took me how many years to actually meet you in person? Was it 2-3 years?
I don't know, man. You just showed up at the event in Ottawa, and then we're buddies. And then you ended up in the Growth Stacking Summit down in Austin, and now I'm on your podcast. That's how I am, man. If people make the investment, I show up. I mean, the first time we met, right? Took some time, sat down, got to know your business, wanted to be helpful.
Yeah.
That's how I am. People, I don't know why people think like anything. I hope I don't come off that way, but I'm super approachable to good people that are willing to meet me halfway.
Absolutely, 100%. And that was actually a good lesson in and of itself. But a lot of people know your story. Your story is amazing, but some of them don't. Maybe we should start there because the journey you've traveled from your beginnings to where you are right now is just absolutely fascinating. Do you mind, doing a,
No, man. I'd love to share it. A big part of my my mission in life is for people to get to know who I really am, not kind of who they think I might be. And, when people say they started, from the bottom, now we're here. I kind of, visually in my head, I started from like a hole and then there was the bottom and then there was the thing. So, but I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs maybe watching this feel the same way, or they kind of went through some chaos as a child. And, my story is at 8 years old, I got diagnosed with ADHD. I grew up in so I always felt kind of broken and, zero self-esteem. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was in sales, and I'm the second oldest of 4 kids. So just a lot of kind of craziness as a child. And I just acted out. I had a huge anger problem. I was always kind of entrepreneurial. My joke is that I always could convince other neighborhood kids to build the tree fort or the snow cabin because I grew up in Canada, and then make them pay me to play in it. So, I kind of got into real estate at a young age.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't stay that path, and I got myself in a lot of trouble. So, grew up, got into drugs when I was 13, started hanging out with people twice my age, got in a lot of trouble. So, like, whoever you think was like a bad kid in school, take that kid out a couple points. That was probably me. And by the time I was 17, ended up drunk and high on a highway in a stolen car with a handgun in the bag next to me, you know, with the belief that if the police caught me, I was just going to grab the gun, point at them, and let them do their job. And took a routine roadblock, exit off the highway. And there was a roadblock there, and you know, cops asked me for my license. I said I didn't have it. It was my mom's car. They asked me to pull over, and I took off and ended up smashing the side of a house. When I went to grab for the gun, it got stuck, and you know, before I knew it, the door swung open. The cops grabbed me, and my feet didn't touch the ground. I woke up sober the next morning in a jail cell, not knowing really what my life was going to look like. And yeah, I don't know if it's God, source, you know, the creator, whatever. I just kind of like, you know, released control of my life and said, if anybody's looking out for me, I could really use some help. And my commitment was that if they helped me get through that, I was just going to try to do the best I could in life. I didn't even understand the concept of giving back. I was just like, you know, going to be a better version of me, right? Because I never actually always believed I was a good kid. It was really this weird upbringing. Ended up spending 5 months in adult jail for my crimes. I eventually got released to a treatment center called Portage that saved my life. Allowed me to work on myself and who I am and my feelings and the relationship I have with my family. Got me sober, obviously. And at the end of that program, I was helping out Rick, who is kind of like the lawn care kind of guy. He fixed everything. Essentially, we broke it. He fixed it. He asked me to clean out one of the cabins. It was an old Bible camp. And in one of the cabins, there was a room with an old computer and this yellow book on Java programming. And I looked at it, and on the cover, there's like a code snippet, and it kind of read like English. And I was thinking, that's computer programming. It kind of makes sense to me. And I opened it up and booted up the computer and started typing away some code. And I got the computer to say hello, which was like a big deal. You know, I was like, oh shit, this isn't crazy. I can do this. And that just spiraled in a good way for me. I got out, you know, rebuilt the relationship with my dad. My parents got divorced at that point, ended up living with my dad. You know, today he's my hero. Software became my new addiction. I pretty much for a couple of years just read every computer book on, you know, this is 96, 97. So probably the best time to be turned on to computers and the internet. And since then I've been super fortunate. I've started 5 companies. I've exited the last 3. I've done tens of millions of dollars in online sales through my software companies. I became a millionaire when I was 27. And, you know, I've raised money for the last 2 companies from guys like Mark Cuban and some of the top investors in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. Some cool entrepreneurs gave me the privilege of investing in their companies. Like, you know, I was the first investor in Intercom and Hootsuite and Udemy and Unbounce and just a ton of incredible tools. And dude, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere in Eastern Canada. And I'm in San Diego right now for a couple months with the family. And that's my life. I literally get to spend my days talking with some of the most incredible entrepreneurs, helping them and supporting them. I coach, you know, high-performing SaaS founders. You've met a lot of them, actually. Yeah. And I get to travel the world speaking on stages in front of thousands of people. And I got 2 little boys, and every day my feet touch the ground, and I thank the universe for the day. I believe that everything's happened for me, not to me. And the fact that I'm alive is just proof that I'm being guided to do even more. And that's the way I see it. And that's the way I see it for you and everybody listening or watching this podcast. If you are here on earth today, it's because there's something you need to do. And that's the journey we're all on, which is super cool. Think about it that way.
This is so badass. Wow.
It's neat.
Actually leads me to 2 questions. In your estimation, how many thousands of entrepreneurs have you helped so far?
Well, I mean, you'd have to define help, right? I mean,
well, somebody who's learned something from you that made them a better entrepreneur.
Oh, it's got to be in the millions. It's got to be millions plus. I mean, I had the privilege of, you know, and then it's direct and indirect, right? So like I've had 1 million people watch my videos on YouTube, right? So that's that output. That's just my personal channel. That's not even like video views of like other events I've spoken at. And then there's like Clarity, which I built as a network for entrepreneurs to give advice to other entrepreneurs. So I built this tool that empowered the globe of entrepreneurs to make themselves available to those who needed them more. So like that indirectly, I kind of supported all those conversations. That was hundreds of thousands of conversations. And, the other cool thing, the way I think about it is like, my mission is to touch 1 billion lives. And the way I do it today is by supporting the next generation of really incredible, fast scaling software entrepreneurs to continue building incredible products that serve more people. And through that work, through them, we're going to hit to 1 billion, probably more. I mean, we're on our way there. So I don't know, man. It's crazy when you think about it that way. But the reality of it is, and I'm okay with it, is that I'll never know. And every once in a while, like yesterday, I posted a screenshot, a random email or a random comment from some guy that somehow years ago, I picked up the phone or replied to an email where they watched my video and it sent them down a different path. And, just for some reason, something made them think I should let Dan know. And those moments, that's everything. That's like, yeah, I had people show up in my life that way. And that's why I'm getting a little emotional, because it's my way of honoring them. Like, there was no reason these people had to take time out of their day to have that conversation with me or to share what they saw in me, as a teenager or even as a young entrepreneur. And, I think of my 2 boys and just how incredible my relationship is with them, but it's a byproduct of being an entrepreneur. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm the person I am today because entrepreneurship was the ultimate personal development program. So my kids have a better dad that shows up on a daily basis because those people help me be a better entrepreneur.
That's deep. Yeah.
So I cannot not want to help those people, yourself, anybody, because that would just be just the most weirdest, dishonest thing you could do, I guess.
Let me take you back in history a little bit. So you learned to code, you got good at coding, which is, I was kind of going through the same thing, but so I got into this. I started coding, started with, just the basic, and then learned PHP, Java, all that wonderful stuff. But at some point,
remember Cold Fusion?
Never done that.
Dude, it's like this, programming language. I think it was one of the most elegant. And nobody talks about it anymore, but it was great.
So here's my question. One day you realize that, I can't just be coding. I have to, there's more entrepreneur in me than there's a coder. And how did that happen to you when you said, I'm just going to let coders code and I will build companies?
I coded, right? So like so Flowtown, Clarity, I built the first prototype. So it's only been pretty much the last 3 to 4 years where it's not something I do now. Essentially what would transfer is I might write the first prototype, but then the team would build, because every time I touched the code base, I'd probably introduce more defects and bugs than was worth the time or the energy, right? But I would always, like, if I saw like an interface tweak or a bug or the label was off, I wouldn't bug the engineers. I'd just get in there, change it, and push it to production. But I think what happened was my second company, again, I started 5 companies so far. I'm 38, just turned 38. So I've been doing this over 20 years. So I started when I was 17. My second company was a hosting company. I started with my brother. It's called NB Host. Mm-hmm. And my brother was always kind of more salesy. Like in many people's eyes, Pierre was the entrepreneur more than Dan ever was. I mean, I didn't do anything productive, so I don't blame them for thinking that way. Pierre bought his first car when he was like 13 years old so that he could fix it up and have a car ready when he was 16 or 15. But he ended up fixing it up, selling it, and doing that 2 or 3 times. By the time he turned 16, he had a brand new Mustang 5.0. Like wow. He was very entrepreneurial. So when I had this idea for a hosting company, I said, here, you do the sales and the marketing because you're like more salesy and, front of the stage kind of stuff. And I'll just like make sure the servers are up and configure them and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think what happened was the company ended up failing for a few reasons, but the big reason is Pierre had no clue how to talk to the customer about that specific problem. And 2, the part I hated the most about the business was actually like spending all my time in a server room, freezing my balls off, installing software and configuring servers and getting the call the worst company you could possibly start is a hosting company because you're on the hook for 24/7. Like at any moment. It's probably not as bad as a real estate agent, but I can imagine if you're a real estate agent that has to like go show houses when somebody calls, because like most people are looking to buy nights and weekends. Yeah, maybe it's not as bad as that. Maybe all the real estate agents are going to hate me in 5 seconds, but whatever. That was the forcing function when that company failed, to say, you know what, maybe my role isn't so backstage and should maybe be front of stage talking to customers. Now so I ended up doing that, and that my third company was Spheric Technologies. We built enterprise portal software for Fortune 500 companies. I grew that to kind of 3.2 million in 4 years. At 24, I started it. Got acquired when I was 28, and dude, like I said, I remember the day I was driving up this street in Moncton, where I'm from, Eastern Canada, called Vaughan Harvey. And my accountant called, and he goes, "You want to hear something cool?" And I said, "What's up?" And he goes, "You got $1 million in your account." And I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Awesome." And then I just like quickly moved on to like, "Hey, when are you gonna get me that report that I need to kind of close this deal?" He's like, "Aren't you excited?" I say, "Well, I'm excited, but we got shit to do, man. Let's like, you know." And he's like, "All right." So like, I've always been kind of like, the thing that excites me is about the journey, right? So I guess like I knew that my transition was going to have to be less about writing the code and more about becoming the leader. And so I would say Spheric was when it started. But I definitely, most people don't know this. The whole time I built that company, 4 years, I worked with clients full time. I was a consultant full time, billing, every month, to fund the company to keep it growing. Because if you grow that fast, it's like, it makes this big swooshing, sucking noise of cash. And I just kept reinvesting, saving it. Finally, year 3, things start looking good. 4 is amazing. And then, but yeah, I don't code anymore, only because it's gotten kind of complicated. Like the internet, man, like it's, as much as it's simplified it, you got mobile, you got desktop, it's just gotten too, like, I don't care anymore. I just care about the idea, building the team, scaling it up, and serving the customer.
Cool. I remember how it happened to me, because there was actually one night, because I'm a night owl, right? I go to bed like 3, 4. It's normal for me. And I used to code basically until it was done, until it worked. And that's the great thing about coding versus lawyering, because with code, you see the result right away. It either works or it doesn't, right? With lawyering, with trademarks, you file it and like you sit there for months without even having a clue, is it going to go through or not? And so that's one of the reasons that kind of it's instant gratification of coding, I guess, for me. And so one of those nights, that was like 5 a.m., I caught myself thinking, you know what, Andrei? I'd rather be sleeping now. I went to bed and I hired my first full-time developer the next day. Like that was exactly the moment when I realized, you know what? I'd rather be sleeping now than wait until it works. And never went back. It's pretty interesting.
I mean, that's one of the first tips, when people ask me like new entrepreneur, what are kind of things they should do? Number 2 out of 3 is build your team faster than you realize, right? It doesn't require money. It's just because, like there's so much value in having a team just to like pull you up when you're feeling down, or to kind of like pick up the slack, whatever it is. Like I waited way too long to start building a team. My first 2 companies, other than my brother on the second one, I didn't have a team. And that was the first thing. Day 1 of Spheric, I hired 3 people.
Mm. Wow. Well, that's, a good part of that is because by that time you became a leader that a lot of people wanted to work for. Weren't you?
Oh, I wouldn't say I was there then. I was 24, man. I was still I had a lot of shit to work through. This is what's interesting is even the Dan Martell 2017 is not the Dan of 2018. Like, it's a continuous thing. Like my kids made me way kinder, way more patient. So like, I would say I appreciate that you would say that, but if you talk to people that worked with me back then, I'm not sure that they would say that I was the kind of leader they wanted to work for. I was just really good about convincing people, but I may have been a bit aggressive in my tactics because I didn't know any better at that point.
Well, still a great lesson, isn't it?
100%. Wouldn't change a thing.
I remember how I came in touch with Clarity, which is probably the business that you're most known for. And I was just starting out in Canada. So I was a lawyer in Russia for many years and then moved to Canada. After I finished my law school, started my law firm, had no clients, had no money, and was going to, jumping from one networking event to another. And everyone was suggesting, well, you should sign up with Clarity and, you're going to get clients through there. And I signed up like it was 2013 or something, like really early on. And didn't really get any clients. Like it wasn't happening almost at all. And then as I was growing, suddenly was getting more and more, call requests. And now I use Clarity for a completely different reason, right? So basically, jacked up the rate there, and I use it as a way to filter people who just, send me those random emails. Well, Andrei, I got a question. I urgently need you to answer. I'm like, okay, no problem. Just book a call. And 95% of them disappear. Saves a lot of time on my calendar.
That ended up being one of the core use cases of Clarity. So many people eventually figured that part out.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of people that made, like, I call it real money, like $1,500 a month, kind of like a car payment kind of deal. That was always our goal, is to get experts to that level. But yeah, it's like most of the experts on there it was the use of like an inbound filtering process. That's how I use it today.
Yeah. So easy. Book a call.
Yeah. They're like, okay. And then they come back like, oh, really? That much? And I'm like, hey, man, you want the best.
Yeah. So this is this program is called KickAss Brand Show, and you've built quite a few of them. So I guess first question I have for you is, what is a KickAss brand for you? How would you find one? How do you separate what's KickAss from what's not?
Well, first off, I think it's got to have you got to connect the meaning to it, right? I think every brand, the way I describe it, it's kind of like, deliberate or like every interaction, deliberately or unintentional, that somebody has with your company, right? So everything you do tries to like shape that experience. So it kind of looks like the painting you would hope they get, versus just like this abstract piece of art with a bunch of brush strokes.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some deliberate thought of, what do we want? What do we stand for? What do we stand against? What are our strengths? What are our flaws? And like create what's called, some people call this in the screenwriting world, the character diamond, right? Like every great brand has a character diamond of beliefs and values and whatnot. This is my personal logo, but I essentially, like, it's the community's logo to represent a lot of stuff. Most people don't know that it's the DM, right? So it's the damn Martell. It's the me, my wife, and my kids. It's the struggle that I went through. If you think that the story I told you at the beginning was just the beginning, it wasn't. There was other, peaks and valleys.
So that.
Yeah, no, a lot of people don't. There's a lot of work, like a lot of thought put into it. And this is true for every one of the companies I've started. I've always had a fascination with brands. So that's why I was really excited to chat with you. I think there needs to be an origin. I mean, really, it's all about storytelling, right? So every great brand, if you name me the company from, Apple to Amazon to Tesla to whoever, most of the customers of the market know the origin story of those companies. Now, this is the interesting part. It could be factual, it could be true or not, it could be mythical. But at the end of the day, they want to know, how did this thing get started, right? And this is true for tech companies trying to raise capital. Like the first question investors want to know is, how did you guys come up with this idea? So there's the origin story, right? And I actually have a YouTube video called like 3 stories every entrepreneur needs to perfect for pitching. But one of them is that story. Like, how did this thing get started? The other way I think about it is there's kind of like those character aspects of like, what do we stand for and what do we stand against, right? So I think that like weak brands that don't really have an opinion. So I think of like 37 Signals and Basecamp. They have a great product. They're very opinionated. They have a very strict philosophy about like remote workers and compensation and like all these things around the business that has created a brand. Now, some people might agree with them and some people may disagree with them, right? You have guys like Gary Vee, right? So he's like most people, because I've known Gary for a decade now, most people when they first meet him think he's the most obnoxious person in the world. What I love about him is he's patient and he knows eventually he'll win you over. Because the truth is he absolutely cares on a level most people will never understand. I've seen it, years and years. I or my company Flowtown was a customer of their company VaynerMedia back in 2009, right? So like literally, and I've known him the wine library days, right? We met through Twitter and then eventually in person. And so he's got this kind of like, you know, some people think he's a workaholic. Some people, you know what I mean? Like, it's really interesting for me to see people debate it now that he's kind of like Gary V, you know, like he's a thing. It's fascinating. But I think those are all elements of a great brand. You know, obviously the values, right? And the values are really about hiring and firing. You know, what do you believe in and how do you use that to bring people into your world? One of my favorite things, recently I was talking to my friend Dev from, he's got a company called Powered by Search, Dev Basu. And we were talking about like, you know, he's one of the smartest marketing minds out there. And we were talking about like choosing customers, like what's your ideal customer profile and like what would be aspects of that. And they actually, in their business, they have values that customers have. So like there's certain things that they test for in the sales call or a fit call to demonstrate that their customers share the right values. And if they don't, they'll just say, hey, unfortunately, I just don't think we're the best agency for you. Here are two others that might be a better fit, right? So like things like, do they have a problem that they're aware of? Is it something they want to solve now? Do they want their specific help to solve this? You know what I mean? Like there's a bunch of stuff that a lot of people don't think about. And I think that tells a lot about the brand. You know, I think people spend way too much time on logo and design. And to me, those things are byproducts of the soul and the core, right? Mm-hmm. Another thing is the business has to stand for a mission and a movement. It can't be about making money. Like that's like I went and visited a Tesla factory last year, and right above like the guest entrance door was the mission statement. Their mission statement's all over the factory. Like to transition the world's fuel, blah, 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 to renewable energy. Like that's the mission. Google's was to index the world's information and make readily accessible to everybody in the world, right? Stuff like that. So like the brand needs to stand for something more than the product and the customer, right? Tom Shoes, Warby Parker, you know, those are kind of like more kind of niche brands, but you know, Apple stood for something. Right. Yeah. And Apple like never did any charity stuff. It's not about like being good in the world either. They were like, look, we'll let our customers take the money that we make them by building the best products and invest it wherever they want. And most of the charities actually use Apple products. So in their mind, the best thing they could do with the resource they have was to build better products. You know, that's a very important, like that's an opinion that Steve had that you know, the component of their brand. So I could talk about this in all aspects, but that's at a high level, philosophically speaking, that's how I think about it.
Do you think Apple would have been less successful if they were plum or mango or whatever other fruit?
Yeah. If you think about it, Apple used to be Apple Computers, right? Yeah. So like even just the dropping of the computers in like, I think it was pretty late, like 2007, 2008, maybe it was 2011, honestly, I don't know. But yeah, I think it was 2011, they dropped the computers. Yeah, I think other fruits could have worked. I don't, you know, would it have had that big of a material impact in regards to the revenue? I don't know. In regards to people wanting to get tattoos, maybe so, maybe on that angle.
Okay. So your own brands, have you named all your companies, all your projects yourself, or did you have a branding agency to do that for you?
I mean, just so you guys know, I'm not that smart. And I'm okay with that. I've always brought people in, right? Now, formal, informal, you know, my designer Rich helped me with this, but I mean, I drove the process, right? So my buddy Gare Maxwell is brilliant. Yeah, it's really just about bringing people in. So like, of course, like I'm not a designer, but I sat down and I made sure that like, hey, this logo has to represent these three components of my life. Right.
But the name itself, did you come up with the names or did you have a brand name?
The name I always came up with. So like the best name, and it's not a, you know, Flowtown honestly was named Flowtown because Ethan had the domain and we needed a name and it was good enough. So there wasn't a whole lot of thought there. Clarity was an accident. It was the name, like I always try to name it the benefit you receive. And I think clarity is probably the perfect name because people would be like, yeah, I got off this call, I got a lot of clarity around my problem. I was like, nice. But it was a .fm. So people always ask me like, did that hurt you? I actually don't think so because it was like broadcast, right? It's like an FM radio thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was $8, right? I did try to buy the clarity.com. I offered $250,000 and to pay for a complete rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not want to play ball at all. And I tried for 16 months. But truth is I think in today's world, people spend way too much on like domain stuff. And most of the discovery is going to be linked to your thing. So you don't need to have a .com.
What is your advice to people who are just starting out in terms of what they should be doing to build their brands into something that actually matters? And at what point do you think you should treat your brand as an asset rather than, well, you know what, if it works, nice. If it doesn't, who cares? Right? Because I see a lot of this with business owners who are just starting out, the entrepreneurs, that just name whatever and hope that it sticks. And
PBJ Services, right? Atlas Limited, Kodiak, like, yeah, my brother's a home builder, so he has a lot of those contractors that name things that really don't think about, it's their initial, right? It's their last name. It's like their word. The truth is you're going to create the brand around it, whatever you want, right? Like GE is a brand that like is GE, you know what I mean? Like there's not a whole lot to it. It's two letters. And so I think what happens, and I was talking to my buddy Clay a couple of days ago about this, is when you start off, like you got two types of marketing. You got brand marketing and direct marketing. Direct marketing is, I got an ad, I need to get in front of a customer who has a pain problem, them kind of interact with my company, and then, through a promotion, a partner, whatever. But like it's direct, meaning that like I put that message out there to get a customer. Then you got brand marketing, which is more like, Super Bowl ad-esque Apple type stuff. And kind of like in the early days, it's like zero branding, all direct marketing. And I think over the history of the company, maybe at 2 million, 3 million in revenue, you start doing a little bit more. And then at some point, you probably end up like when you're in the Apple category, 95.5, right? It's all branding. Lexus, all branding, very little direct, right?
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be, if you want to build, the cool part is it's not required to be successful, right? It's one of those things where it's kind of like your reputation. It's not required to be successful, even though it's more and more in today's world, right? At the end of the day, you could be known as just a horrible person, but if you can get people results, you'll still have customers, right?
Yeah.
But what it does, if you're just happen to be able to get people results and you have a great brand and you're a good person and you've got the stories figured out and all that stuff, is it just amplifies and makes things easier, right? So I call it the contextual part of it versus the conversion part of it. And this is where I'm seeing a lot, especially in like Facebook and other social channels, is it's allowing you to build context for the market that then makes all of your conversion stuff easier. If you've got a brand that stands for something in the market and you get a customer into kind of an enrollment process, a sales process, the conversation's way easier than if you don't have that. By like a factor magnitude order of like 3x or 4x, right? So to me, it's just a good ROI, right? Like I want the business to be easier to scale, easier to hire great people, easier to retain people, easier to get customers, because I've made investments in the mission, the values, and the brand of the business.
Okay. When you're running multiple businesses, multiple companies, how do you manage to kind of tell people, on behalf of which brand you're speaking at each?
Pick one. You can't. You can't. Like I own multiple companies. I only talk about the one, which is me, right?
Yeah.
My individual companies talk about themselves, right? So you want to lead with one. So it's kind of like, what's the one you put out to the market? Once they come into your world, then you can triage them into the right thing, right? So Apple sold to businesses. Their marketing was consumer, right? But consumers were also business owners that would then become business customers of Apple. But that was after the fact, right? You never saw them run an ad for like, Apple servers or the enterprise version of iOS or whatever it is, right? They were just like very much consumer brands. So my whole thing is, I think people confuse people all the time when they're like, so what do you do? And they're like, well, I have 3 businesses. It's like, if you got 3 businesses, you probably have no business. One of my favorite things to do, I get a lot of calls from entrepreneurs, especially because like sometimes I'm driving for a couple hours. I'll just like, post a video and say like, DM me your cell phone. And if I get a chance, I'm going to give you a call. I'm just going to like keep calling people. And I was on a call with one of these entrepreneurs once driving on my way kiteboarding from my town to like 3 hours north. So it was a lot of time. And it was super fun because I talked to a bunch of entrepreneurs. One guy gets on, I said, so what do you got? So what do you do? And he goes, well, I got 3 businesses. I said, let's stop for 1 second. All right, what are the 3 names of the businesses? He gave me them. I said, cool. Number 1, that business. Be honest, won't tell anybody what were annual revenues last year. 26,000. Perfect. Business number 2, what were the annual revenues last year? Well, it's new. Perfect. Third business, what were annual revenues last year? 126,000 or 130,000. Perfect. You've got 3 businesses, one that's actually kind of something, and these 2 are probably going to make this one fail. So you got no business. And he was like, oh. And then I was like, what's your question? You know what I mean? That's just silly. Who are you trying to impress? Like, I'd rather you say I've got 1 business, I've been working on it for 25 years, and by the way, it's doing 36 million in revenue, right? Yeah. I think people forget what's the most interesting part. Oh, not even that. And it's 36 million in revenue, and it's got an 80% EBITDA. That's fascinating, right? Mm-hmm. So people, and look, dude, I was one of those guys in the early days. What do you do? Well, I got 2 things. I have an agency, and I've got these software products, right? I didn't have neither. Really, I had an agency that was struggling. I had software products that couldn't find customers. So, yeah, I'm speaking from experience.
I remember when 3 years ago, I gave up my lawyer license just to focus on Trademark Factory, just to do one thing only. And I had to give up the license in order to scale this internationally. I remember my first big networking event after that, because I still couldn't wrap my hand around this, that I couldn't call myself a lawyer anymore after all these years. And I went to this networking event, and there's this woman, she's asking me a lot, so Andrei, what do you do? Well, we do trademarks. And she's like, well, what else do you do? And like, nothing. That's the only thing that we do. It felt so good to be able to say that, because I remember just a couple of weeks before that, I would tell them, well, we can help you with this, we can help you with that, we can do your contracts, we can do your licensing, all of that stuff. I'm like, no, that's the only thing that we do. It just my life became so much easier from that moment. It's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So what's interesting is not only that, but like getting really clear about who your customer is, right? Yeah. Like the most liberating thing you can do as a business owner is being absolutely perfectly clear what a perfect customer looks like. And you were at my Growth Stacking Summit. We talk about, who do they follow? What do they fund? I forget the third F. There's another F there, but essentially it's like this intersection of like being super clear of, where do they have fun? Like, what do they invest in? What events do they go to? Yeah. And that to me is like my secret weird superhuman trick, is figuring that out. Because when I help an entrepreneur figure that out, the business takes care of itself. It's kind of funny. It's like when you say my perfect customer is doing between 2 and 5 million in revenue, lives in Eastern United States, is a doctor, lives in a town of 100,000, 350, like one, is male, is 35 to 45. All of a sudden, like all this crazy potential customer stuff goes down, and it's like, boom, it's Bob, it's Jay. You know what I mean? Like, it's so clear. Your marketing gets crisp, your messaging, your brand gets better. Like, if you know who you serve, that one, like my customer that I work with right now is called Software Scaling Sam. Okay. I know exactly who Sam is. I know how old he is. I know how many kids he has. I know where he lives. I know how much he makes. I know what he's done in his career, like crystal freaking clear, like who that guy is. And everything I write, all my marketing messaging, every brand thing, all of it is focused on Sam. My whole team knows that, and it just makes the rest of the business easier.
So your growth stacking events, how often do you have them? Because I attended one. It was amazing. I got so much value out of that one day.
Yeah, so it'll probably, I've got one coming up in Toronto on the end of April, so the 30th of April. Then another one in September in San Francisco. And then that'll probably be the end of the Growth Stacking Summit. And the reason why is it's really a way for me to support software entrepreneurs, that predominantly software entrepreneurs, other folks in the room that are just software curious, or they're just like, they're digital agencies and just like the thinking.
I'm not in the software business. I still got a ton of value.
That and there was 10% of the room were non-software companies. People come because they like the thinking and the clarity around my growth engine models and stuff.
Yeah.
But the truth is it's kind of been a give for the community. Like, it's not, my customers kind of find me other ways. Like, I coach some of the best entrepreneurs in the world in the software space, and they just email me. And if they're a fit, then we get on a quick call and then they enroll in my coaching. So I don't really, as I look at like where I spend my time and, like cutting back, unfortunately, September is probably going to be the last one.
So how would people sign up if they wanted to? Because they still got a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's very, if you're listening to this and you want to check it out, just email me directly, dan@danmartell.com. Full disclosure, Stephanie, my assistant, or Kelsey, I've got 2 assistants now because it's getting crazy, but they'll reply to you with the details. And, if it's a fit, then you'll obviously get the invite, but they'll ask you a few questions. Because the truth is, I don't want the wrong people in the room, dude. As you've experienced, it was an incredible event because I'm really, it's the worst thing you can do when you build community or you build an event is have a rotten apple, right? Somebody that's just like a curmudgeon or not into it or not going to play full out or is cynical or whatever it is, right? Whatever their own story is going on in their head, you don't want those people in the room. That's why for me, even though it is an investment to come to it, it's curated. Right? You can't just buy a ticket because you have a credit card.
Yeah. So knowing what you know now, this mega successful Dan Martell.
Dude, I'm just getting started. Like, I'm building an empire. This is, if you think this is successful, I don't even feel it. Like this is the tip.
Oh,
I'm 38, man. I'm going to be building companies till I'm 165. Like, I got some years.
There you go. So knowing what you know now, what are the 3 things you would have done differently? Well, other than, not being in that car.
I wouldn't have done that different though, dude. Honestly, I needed to go through that.
Yeah.
I'm actually like concerned what would happen if I didn't get stopped. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't change a thing, man. Like, literally, I believe that I'm here because I'm being guided and I got some shit to do and some people to thank, and that's what I'm going to do. But if you ask me, like, what would I give to other people as advice? If they were in similar situations, I would say I waited way too long to get a mentor, right? That's a big one. Like, I was 26. I started when I was 17. So that's 9 years. I should have got a mentor as soon as I got into business, right? When I meet people and they're like, I had a mentor as soon as I started this company, or I met a mentor and I started a company because of that. And I'm like, so kind of like, oh man, my life would have been dramatically different, because it's like, imagine if I put you at the bottom of Mount Everest and I said, like, climb the mountain, and you're like, all right. And you're like tenacious. Like, some people are going to be successful, right? But the truth is, it's going to be like a magnitude of order of like 100 times, 1,000 times harder.
Yeah.
Whereas if you got a Sherpa or like a guy that's been up there 30 times, it's easy peasy. He's like, let's go do it. He's got the gear. He tells you where to put your hands, your feet, the gear to switch. You got layers, you got altitude, you got like base camp. He knows the map. You don't end up the background and then have to come down and go back up this way. So to me, getting a mentor would have been numero uno. And if people are curious, I have a great video on how to find a mentor in your city that nobody else knows about. It's super easy, way easier than you think. It's on my YouTube channel if you search my name plus mentor. That'd be 1. 2.
We'll find it. We'll post the link. Yeah.
Cool. I would have built my team faster, right? I talked about that. I would have been quick to start building a team around me for moral support, for bandwidth constraints, for, I think it's really important for you not to be the smartest person in the room. And I think there's a moment when you build the business to a point where it really sucks and you realize that you can't depend on anybody because you didn't do that. That you change your approach because it's like, that really is not smart, and you hear about it and yet you still do it. So I would have done that a lot sooner. And I would have thought bigger. I would have thought a lot bigger, a lot faster. And I consider myself a pretty big thinker at a young age, right? I was 24 selling to Fortune 500 companies to the CTO. Like, there was no, I was so young, put it this way. I had to hire a guy I called my gray hair, this guy named Stu. He had no hair. He was bald. And he was the president of the company. in all negotiations. And I was the director of e-business because no CTO would have hired a guy wearing a suit that was too big for him, you know, at 24 years old. Like it made no sense for them to sign, like Procter & Gamble to sign a $300,000 deal with a 24-year-old kid from, you know, Eastern Canada. So Stu was my guy. So I would have thought bigger because there was even more I could have done. And that was the biggest gift I ever got from moving to San Francisco. I spent 6 years there, and that, you know, being around people that really thought like not, I mean, look, think about Elon. It's not even the world. He's not global. He's universe, right? He's metaverse. He's like, woo, all out there. And with conviction. It's not like just like pie in the sky, like, hey man, wouldn't it be crazy if we like went to Mars? He's like, let's go to Mars. Let's go buy an ICBM Russian rocket. Let's make this happen. You know, like there's a lot of cool people that think like that in San Francisco. I just want to tell you, I don't know if I ever told you the story of Ottavio, but one of my mentors, Ken, he said to me, he goes, find the smartest people you can. When I said I'm going to leave, you know, Eastern Canada, New Brunswick, and move to San Francisco, I felt really guilty because I've always been like, you can build the business wherever you live. And here I was, you know, kind of like moving. But he said the best thing I could ever do for the province was to go there, learn, and bring it back. Right. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And I said, what advice do you have for me? And he said, find the smartest people you can and spend as much time as they'll allow you to with them. Right. So I ended up at a co-working space because I literally didn't know a soul when I moved to San Francisco. And so I figured if I get a co-working desk, there'll be other people around. I could say hi, ask them if they want to do lunch, make some friends. So the owner actually came up to me and was like, so what do you do? And I tell them like, oh, well, I'm, you know, a software guy and built a company, sold it. And now I'm just kind of looking for maybe some investments or some other stuff. And she goes, you know Ottavio? And I'm like, no. She goes, oh, you got to see what he built. I said, what is it? She starts telling me. Essentially, she's explaining this like, you hold up a sign to it or a card with some words on it in your phone, and it would like show you the words on the phone in the opposite language. So like if it was Spanish, it would show it in English, but it wouldn't just like show it underneath as a caption. It would like get rid of the words and put the English words with the same color and typography over the sign. And she's explaining to me, I'm like, okay, I know enough about computer vision and machine learning and algorithms to know that that's like an OCR, object character recognition. I was like, this is impossible. And we go over, she finds Ottavio. She's like, Ottavio, show Dan. This is Dan from Canada, blah, blah, blah. Show him your prototype, your app. And he opens it up and he shows it to me. And he's pulling out these cards out of his wallets with different words, and it's doing it. And this is like iPhone 4. This is like not the X. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, show me the code. And because he didn't think I was actually, because I, you know, most people don't even think I code. They think I'm like a sales and marketing dude. And he opens up the code and I'm watching the terminal just spit out kind of like the output and the C code, because he wrote it in C. It had to be that low level, Objective-C. And I was like, holy shit. And dude, that moment, this was probably 4 weeks being in San Francisco. That's when I realized the reason why you need to be around people that are the world's best at things. Because I felt in that moment that I was Steve Jobs and I just met Steve Wozniak. I was like, oh my God, this guy is on another level of intelligence. Okay. And now we never ended up doing business together. He's still my friend today. He went on to build this company called Quest Visual, iPhone app in the App Store, millions in revenue, got bought by Google, now works at Google in their Google X department doing like 3D VR stuff. He posts things on Facebook that just make me smile because it's so nerdy, and all his friends are into it. Like all his friends are leaving these most ridiculous comments about like vector triangulation and shadow things, and like he's such a nerd. He built like this goggle wearing VR automated flying thing. Like it's a racing drone that races itself and wins in competitions because he just thought, wouldn't that be fun? So I don't even know where I was going with this, but all that to say that, oh yeah, thinking big. It helps to be around people that literally blow your mind at how talented they are. Because it's hard for you to comprehend. And on that, here's kind of another take is there's thinking big of what's possible, but then there's kind of like believing something before you have any proof that it'll be possible. So like even before I ever became a millionaire, 27, you know, got that call from my accountant. Even before that happened, I knew that I started acting as if. I started not like didn't buy anything fancy. I've never been that way. People that know me laugh. Like my buddy Keith's like, all right, I know you just invested $100,000 into this new company, yet yesterday you were complaining about the $50 overage charge of data because you're in the US. I don't comprehend you, Dan. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just weird like that. He goes, aren't you worried you're going to lose your money? I was like, so? He's like, but then why do you give a shit about $50 overcharge? I go, it's principle, man. So I'm weird like that. So what happened is this belief that no matter, and anybody watching this or reading this or whatever medium is, you need to believe in here that that is who you are before you have any proof in the world that that is who you are. And I want that to really sink in for people listening to this, right? Like you need to believe whatever you want to be in life, successful, billionaire, empire builder, an incredible husband, an incredible father. Like even before you have kids, if you want to be an incredible father, you need to believe you are an epic husband. You got to believe that, because then that will drive the activities, the actions. And in the world, what's neat is the world colludes around you to bring things into your world that otherwise, if you didn't believe that, they would just go by, right? We have this part of the brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And its job is to keep you sane. Its job is to filter out 99% of the noise so that you're not you're not consumed with the stimulus, right? If you think about it, like there's a ton of shit going on here, but I'm only focused on like this, right? So because of that part of the brain. And what happens is when you believe that about who you are, way before there's proof out there, your brain starts to see things. I don't know, sorry, if you've ever bought a new car, and maybe before you decided to buy that car, maybe it's a red whatever, you never saw any of them on the road, but all of a sudden now you're test driving them and you see them everywhere, right? Yeah. You see them everywhere. You get a new red dress, if you're a woman. All of a sudden, you notice all women wearing red dresses. And you're like, that's crazy. Is the color of the season? It's like, it's because your RAS was looking for that. So it's scientific. People think it's the secret. It's not the secret, you guys. It's fucking science. That if you can get in that mindset before, it changes the way you filter the world, which then produces opportunities that you wouldn't have seen to get that outcome faster. And that's how it works. So before I've ever achieved the outcome I wanted, I saw it and I believed it in here, and I told myself every day. And eventually those things came true.
So Dan, you mentioned mentors, you mentioned thinking big. There's so much wisdom out there in the world. There's so much of it. And what I find, and I'm probably, another example of that is we only hear what we're prepared to hear. Because now when I'm, thinking back to maybe even a couple of years ago, and now I'm, fixing all the mistakes that I made back then, people were telling me about them. I just didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear it. It just, went into one ear and got out from the other one. What's your tip for speeding up?
It's not that you didn't want to hear it.
Okay.
You didn't want to hear it from that person.
Okay. How do you speed up that process of actually consuming and acting on all that wisdom? Mentor.
The messenger matters. And this is what I learned with clarity, right? Yeah. There's a reason why you don't want to listen to your parents. My dad told me for years, cash flow. Dan, you got to pay attention to cash flow. I was like, shut the fuck up. I'm building, here's a guy who's never started a business. He was a general manager for a company called Siemens, and he's trying to give me advice on running a business. Okay. And I dismissed it. That messenger, I was like, I'm going to do it on my own. I don't need your advice. Stop telling me this, whatever. Almost failed the third company right out of the gates. 2.5 months in, couldn't pay payroll, even though I had, $60,000 in invoices out because I didn't understand a simple concept called cash flow. And what I realized, what's the difference between him saying that and my mentor who down the road said, hey, you need to create a financial model. Essentially, they were saying the same thing, except I was all over my mentor saying it versus my dad. And it really just comes down to the trust you have in the messenger. right? Based on their authenticity, their experience, the way you perceive them, right? Like there's a few things like,
but there's also ego.
Yeah, but that's why like the mentor matters, right? Yeah. Because if you sought out a mentor, right? If you said, I want to have Mark Cuban as a mentor, I was blessed to have him as an investor, one of the best investors I had and I had incredible investors and they were all great. What I loved about Mark is that he was super responsive. Most people would not assume that. Very responsive. Every investor update I sent out, he was the first one to reply. So if you sought out somebody like Mark Cuban for advice and he told you something, your ego, fuck the ego. The ego goes away because here's a guy who's a billionaire many times over that's arguably one of the icons of entrepreneurship of our era. Yeah. And he's telling you something, so it's not about your personal opinion or how you feel about it. This is Mark Cuban saying it. The messenger matters.
But the ego prevents you from going out there and looking for mentors, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. If you can't get over that part, then you're in trouble. But I'm saying the fastest way to overcome the fact that you're not open to certain advice is to find the right messenger. And it doesn't always have to come in the form of a mentor. For example, there's a lot of people I've paid a lot of money, lawyers, accountants, etc., for advice that weren't mentors, but I listened because I paid them for it, right? I always tell people, if you don't pay attention, right? If there's no financial investment or commitment, you won't reprioritize your to-do list to execute on the feedback you got, right? So a lot of times people want to work with me as a coach, and I tell them it's very expensive. And it's not because I'm doing it for the money. It's very expensive because you're such a driven dude that we're not going to have a conversation about you should do it or not. You're going to invest so that I know you're going to listen and take action, because when people invest their money, they want to get their money's worth.
Yeah.
And so 100%. The financial commitment is, for me, more of an alignment of how serious do I think you're going to be to work. Because there's 3 quicks I ask every client that I coach to commit to. Quick to implement so they get the results. Because if they can't do that, I'm not going to be successful. And I care about me getting them results. Quick to ask for help so they don't stay stuck. And quick to share with myself and everybody else that they care about so that everybody learns. And those are the 3 quicks.
Oh, that's brilliant. Love it. Wow. Can't imagine it's always been an hour.
Dude, I could talk. I could talk for hours. I'm weird like that.
This has been so profound. Like the amount of wisdom you shared during this 1 hour is phenomenal. And, it's so amazing to have you on. What I'd love to wrap this up with is you're one of the most inspirational people out there, in this community. And I just like to open this up for you to leave my audience with some of your words of wisdom and inspiration so that they knew exactly why they spent this hour listening to you, and they had, a good idea where they should be heading to.
So the question I'd love for everybody to answer for themselves, right? And this is a personal thing. I'm not looking for a comment below or an email with the answer, but it's a really important one. It comes from my buddy, Philip McKernan. It's, what is that one thing that you need to do in your soul? It's that one activity, that one action, that one decision you need to make, but for whatever reason, maybe you're too busy or it's not the right time or whatever, you've given yourself a reason you aren't willing to make right now. That is what you got to go do.
Wow.
That's all I got, man.
And how often do you do this? Like, how often do you look at the one thing you don't want to do and go and do it?
Daily. Dude, I don't know if you know my manifesto, but if you go to danmartell.com/2Lsmartell.com/manifesto, on there is JFDI. I mean, it's my Facebook page, it's my license plate. JFDI stands for just fucking do it. It is the reason I am successful, is because I don't have a knowing doing gap. Once I know something in my soul, in my heart, that it's the right thing to do, I got to go, man. Like, I got to do it. I'm not going to sit here and wait and think and get more proof that it needs to happen. I need to do it. And the reason why is because I don't take for granted that I got a second chance. I am not supposed to be here on earth. The stats are against me. I went to jail twice. The recidivism rate is super high. I spent lunch yesterday with Quan that went to prison for 24 years for murder. and he got out and I mentor him. So like I was on that track. Okay. So if something I know is in my soul and I know I need to do it, as hard as it is, I got to take action.
JFDI.
And that's the question that's going to get you clear on what that is.
Yeah. Just fucking do it. Love it.
JFDI, man. That's what this stands for.
Thank you.
100%, man. Andrei, absolute pleasure. You're an incredible person, gem in this universe. Keep doing what you do. Keep shining your light. And I'm glad I could be a little help today, man.
Thanks a lot.
Cool. Talk soon.
Wow. Just wow. What do you think about my today's guest? When I got off the call with Dan, I realized that I had some connectivity issues. And you would think that you should get proper connection in Canada in 21st century. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. I want to apologize to Dan and to you that Dan's video is a bit choppy. That's totally my fault. But hey, if you're like me, you will see beyond pixelation and lagging and get the wisdom that Dan was kind enough to impart during the interview. And also, not often do we get our guests to share their email during the show. If you have any questions for Dan, email him at dan@danmartell.com. And as always, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps me get more amazing guests on the show. And if you think you deserve to be on the show because you have a kick-ass brand, or have something to share with the world about kick-ass brands, email me at next@kickassbrandshow.com. next@kickassbrandshow.com. I will see you in the next video.